Okay, Danielle, thanks very much for agreeing to talk about the situation in France. It's obviously a very dramatic situation and a very critical one. I guess the first question is to get some kind of understanding about how we got here. And maybe the immediate question is, why do you think after the Euro elections that President Macron called the snap election?
Thank you for having me and to share our experience and what's happening here right now in France. I think there's a specific situation in our country, but it relates with other political crisis all over Europe and in the world, where you have ruling powers, ruling classes who are unable to maintain their economic and political domination without resorting to authoritarian measure, even in so-called democracy, European democracy. And what's been happening over the past 7 years in France, since Emmanuel Macron won the presidential election. He won this election opposed to Marine Le Pen, and millions of people voted for him in order not because they believed in his program and because he didn't really have any, but because they wanted to oppose Marine Le Pen. They wanted to oppose the far right. So by the end of his first term, 5 years later, and the new election, the far right managed to get the second largest parliamentarian group in the National Assembly. And what has been happening is that Emmanuel Macron made a lot of, sorry. Okay. So during his first term, Emmanuel Macron diminished and attacked labor laws. He made several anti-migrant policies. He attacked anti-racist movements, the movement to go against police brutality. So basically, he legitimized the far-right narrative and put some of the far-right, the Rassemblement National program points inside his policies. So by the end of by the start of his second term, that he actually won again, because he was opposed at the second round of the presidential election to Marine Le Pen, and people voted not for him but against her. The national rally, as they call it themselves now, was able to gain 88 members in parliament, which is the biggest number they ever got in the Fifth Republic history. And he started doing it again. His plan was to, and has been all over those years, with his neoliberal agenda, with a very reactionary also on a lot of issues, you know, legitimizing the how do you say, the bourgeois panic over issue like race, like transgender rights and stuff like that. And that's what made it possible to get to this situation where also the fact that he didn't get a majority wide enough in the National Assembly to be able to implement his policies without resorting to executive power, like the 49.3 measure in the Constitution, which means like it's been 2 years that the national budget, which is, you know, the biggest debate in the National Assembly, was passed without the MPs voting for it, because they use this executive measure. There have been repression of one of the biggest social movements against the pension reform that happened over a year ago. There were uprising against police brutality last spring. So, and the last of his very dangerous and far-right politics that he implemented was the immigration law. Again, another immigration law that was actually, I mean, directly inspired by the far right. So when the European election happened, everybody expected them to lose, the Macron party to lose, and during the 2019 European election, the far right was ahead during that election, because usually the people use this election to sanction. I don't know if you say that, to react to the people in power. So they used the vote of the far right to say fuck to Macron. So and that what's happened again, which was not a surprise, because that happened in 2019. What was very surprising but not unexpected, because as I said, it's been 2 years that Macron didn't have the majority to pass all the law he wanted to do, and it was very it was a very precarious institutional situation. And from the start, we said that he, at some point, he had to, because he wasn't able to build a coalition with the right-wing party, Les Républicains. So he had to call for another election at some point, because it couldn't go on for the next 3 years. But to decide to do this right on the election night, at the after the result of the European election, after Jordan Bardella, who was the far right National Rally main first candidate at the European election, asked for it. He actually answered to the far right, who asked for it, who said that there should be new elections if they won the European election, and at the moment where the far right is fresh from a European election victory, it really means to say that it's either them or me, and meaning that he's ready for them to get into power in order to prove I don't know what, and to be able to say after that, see, they suck, so you better get back to me and stuff like that, which is completely irresponsible. I mean, it's really daring the far right to take power, and we all know that when they do take power, they never give it back, not democratically anyway.
Yeah. Before we get on to the kind of the detail of the election and what's happening right now, I just wanted to ask you 2 questions about National Rally. The first one is, how do you think that they have succeeded in achieving, their considerable popular support, and where is it based? What social layers, what areas is it strongest in, and how politically have they managed to gather it?
Well, first, people have to understand that it's not the National Rally actually is an organization that dates back to the 60s. It was founded by former Waffen-SS, ex-Nazi people, ex-Vichy collaborationists people. So that's the roots of this party, and it's been founded by Jean-Marie Le Pen, and it's been gaining national prominence during the 80s, when there was this shift in economic policy by the Mitterrand government at the time, which was the Socialist Party government with François Mitterrand, and they started to shift from their the first 2 years of the Socialist Party in power. So it was in 1983, and they started to implement austerity measures, and that's made it possible for the National Front, as it was called at the time, to gain prominence. They got their first MP elected, a handful of them at the time. It was, I think there were 2 or 3 of them, but it was still unprecedented because they were political outcasts, social outcasts, and they were very, I mean, the memory of the Second World War and the part those people took in the collaboration and their direct links with that time and the Nazi was they're still very strong. So there was this idea that we have opposed and what we call the Republican blockade. I don't know how you say that, barrage. And the idea that we should make from the left to the right, everybody opposed them to gain more seats. But at the same time, because the social and economic policies tended to, at the same time, turn to around more and more, austerity measure, and there was the economic crisis and I mean structural racism in this country, and the start with the anti-immigration policies that were implemented during the first one were implemented in the mid-late 80s. All of this made it possible for them to get more and more public support, but it was very, I mean, for during the 80s and the 90s, and it was still very strong. The anti-fascists and anti-far right mood was very, very strong. And by the 2000, in 2002, when that was the first time that the far right got to the second round of the presidential election, there was this big movement of rejection, and but it also showed that they managed to gain enough support, and especially because it was at the time there was a Socialist Party government at the time. The president was Jacques Chirac, which was the right wing, Gaullist party at the time, but it was after a general election when the National Assembly chief shifted to the left, but the president was still on the Gaullist right-wing party. So there was a situation, and there was a lot of anger throughout some of the Socialist Party measures that basically said it was the time they were started to embrace the neoliberal agenda, saying that we have to obey to the market laws and stuff like that. So there was a lot of redundancy in the north of the country and stuff like that. So they abandoned most of the working class at the time. So that's what happened. And I think since 2002, more and more, especially since the Socialist Party, turned neoliberal and embraced those policies, that's what made the far right more and more appealing. And especially, I think what happened since Macron, and we've seen it. There's a very marked shift in the way the ruling class, and you get this big boss, the Bolloré, who own some TV channels, and he built his part of his wealth actually on the African continent, exploiting a lot of resources and stuff like that. So he built this media. He's been building this media empire, and it's very clear that he is on the right, on the far right, and he had he's been having a political agenda over the past 7 years, and he's been supporting Zemmour rise to be a candidate in 2022. So, and I think he's been kind of the most outspoken spokesperson for this part of the ruling class, who actually decided that they needed the far right to maintain their status because of all the social movement, and because France has been fighting back against neoliberalism over the past 20 years, despite the advances, despite the fact that the previous government has been implementing a lot of anti-social policies and doing, they've been doing their worst, but still there's been a lot of resistance to that inside the French society. So you got this move to the right and to the far right of a lot of the political landscape. The media has been moving to the right, and I think that's what explain how we went from this. We went from the time where the far right, the National Front, as they were called at the time, was an outcast, to now where they're like, it's okay for them to be in the media, and actually what we've seen is that they don't even need to do anything anymore, to be the most vocal about their policies, because the media are doing the work, and Macron has been doing their work, like normalizing a lot of anti-Muslim, anti-migrants, anti-trade unions, narratives and stuff like that. And as I said, implementing part of the program. So I don't have the detailed electoral map in mind right now. I would say they good. I mean, they usually have a lot of strongholds in the most deindustrialized part of the country. You would say in northern regions and stuff like that, and also on more like countryside. There's very striking figures about the European election, is that they were first in 93% of the communes, which is the smallest administrative I will say that administrative local administration, you say, but the vast majority is in rural areas, and because we got a lot of small small commune and stuff like that. So I think they have the region where they won their first local election in the south, the southeast of France, where they won local elections. Since they've been winning local elections since the 80s. They're strong there, and in the northern region, where they've been, as I said, a lot of deindustrialization. I would say.
Thank you for that. So next question really is about the nature of the National Rally, because obviously Marine Le Pen has spent some time and effort trying to steer the organisation towards at least a superficial sense of respectability and kind of mainstream, in inverted commas, politics. What do you think really is the project of the National Rally, in terms of it's not just its social base, but actually politically, what do you think it is setting out to achieve if it came to power, for example?
I think they won't shift, and we've been hearing more and more how right-wing they are. Like they've been saying that, oh, don't worry, we won't change anything. They've been trying to appeal to the markets and stuff like that, and they've been saying, especially on one big issue as I referred to the big social movement against pension reform in France last year, and they were not part of the movement, but they've been, using it to oppose Macron. They still supported the repression of the movement when Macron decided to crush the movement by sending cops and getting people into custodies and stuff like that. But they were at least they were saying, oh, we will stop this reform. But now they're saying, oh no, we'll wait first. We have a lot of things to do, so we'll see later. And so they've been backpedaling on a lot of those so-called social measures they were saying they would do to appeal to working class people and stuff like that. So I think they will do the same policies, economic policies, anti-social policy as Macron did. I think one of the as a far right party, what's at core of their ideology is the idea that every problem in France is due to foreigners, and what they call foreigners are migrant people, but also French people, Black, Muslim, Arabs, French people, and that's why racism is not just something secondary to their social discourse or economic discourse that is supposed to appeal to working class people and stuff, but it's really at the core of their ideology. They do believe that there's this big replacement happening. The true French people, the white Christian, are the original or natives in Europe and in France, and so that's what immigration and Black and brown people in France have been weighing down the country and stuff like that. So I think that's what's the core of their policy, of their ideology, and thinking that this is a very racist ideology, which makes the difference between the far right and the right wing people who are like right wing and stuff like that. And there's of course structural racism. That means that they can have this discourse and maybe believe in those stuff, but that's not the main focus for them. And the even classic right-wing people do not have the same position on race issues, and this ideology, this fascist ideology, and the idea that we have to get back to our country from everybody else who is not white and Christian and stuff like that. So I think that's, to me, and when you I mean, over the past years in National Assembly, they've never they've been voting like the other right-wing party, Les Républicains. They've been voting like Macron on a lot of social issues and stuff like that. And the only time they were really present at the National Assembly when we're talking about immigration and authoritarian measure to implement stuff against human rights and stuff like that. That's the only time they were really showing their face and taking part in the parliamentary debate.
So La France Insoumise has kind of led, it seems to me, the left response to this very critical situation. How do you feel the movement response is going so far?
Well, we did a swift reaction, and we took the initiative to call for a meeting of all the left movements to get together and show a united front and give a call to everyone and social movement and trade unions to join us to fight the far right. And we were able to do that because despite the fact that we were not uniting during the European elections, we've been advocating for that because we knew that the far right was ahead. But if we had been united, the left, and if we had maintained our coalition, the NUPES, that managed to get us first at the general election in 2022, we could have match them and even beat them during the European election. So we had been advocating for that. The other party didn't want to do that because they thought that they could make a better result by their own, and they were like those kind of personal agenda for different people. Still, we thought that there was a need to get together again after the European election, but the timing got sped up a little bit with the decision by Macron to call a new election. So we've been able to do that because also despite coming second after the Socialist Party at the European election, that we knew we would, because it's not the best election for us. A lot of working class people, middle class people don't go to vote at the election. We still managed to get a good result. We managed to also capture the mood, the mood that a lot of people felt, especially connecting the European election and the responsibility of the European countries in what is happening in Gaza and in Palestine. So we managed to get very good results in major cities and a pretty decent national result at the European election. And we've been the main left movement in the country for the past 5 years now, and we could say since 2017, actually, when we got the first major break with Jean-Luc Mélenchon getting 90% of the votes during the presidential election. And we've been supporting all the social movement. We've been, really building a movement that is supported by lots of young people, lots of people with immigrant background, and a lot of people of color. But also we got a good results even in some rural areas, because we gained MPs in those areas, and despite the idea that only the far right is able to gain stronghold there, and our strategy has always been to say that we need to talk to the people who abstain. We need to get them back into politics and get active into politics, and give them a reason to do that. And for that, we need to be clear about our program and what we're going to do, and to be clear that we won't get back to the way things used to be, and get back to neoliberal policies with some social measure on the sides. We have to make a clear and clean break from those policies. So that made us that put us in a position of being the party on the left with the biggest parliamentary group, and a lot of influence among the young people, among a lot of the electorate. So I think that gave us that's what gave us the legitimacy to take this initiative and to call for this united front, this new popular front, referring to the alliance that was built during the 30s to oppose the far right at the time. But we wanted also to think about it differently, because what we said that we need to learn from the mistakes of the past and maintain clarity about what we're going to do, how we're going to do this, and how the kind of dynamics we want to to happen inside the society, because we actually can win this election. We can beat the far right, and when we got in power, if we manage to do that, we'll need social movement, we need youth movement, we need migrant movement to still be very active to help us to actually implement our programs, because we'll be facing a lot of pushback from the system and stuff. So that's something very important that we've been saying, and so we need to maintain this balance of force inside our alliances, where our radical agenda is still the main setup, and because we know that in these alliances there are people who are more like social liberal and that do believe that we can manage to do some neoliberal policies, but not too much and stuff like that. So I think that's what's been happening, and we've been saying that. But our main focus now is really to make sure that people go and vote, because our main task is to beat the far right. That's what we've been saying. We've got a program that is clear about the policies that we're gonna implement. That's radical enough. We had to do some, talking, and we it's not our program per se, because everybody was around the table, so we had to change a few things. But the main points and the main measures are something that is very aligned with what we've been saying before, and that's what's the most important for us: beat the far right and being able to implement an actual radical program to change lives for millions in this country.
So what's the main element? What's this kind of the key elements in the strategy to win the election, first of all?
Well, first it's to go and find people to go and vote, because what we've been saying for the past years is that there's those 3 electoral blocks which also reflect some social alliance. You got the what we call the bourgeois bloc, and it's been regrouping around Macron, and since 2017, you got this bourgeois bloc around Macron that pushed him and helped him get into power. You got the far right bloc, and you got what we call the popular bloc, our bloc, which means it's when you had our results over the past years with the Socialist Party, the Greens, the Communist Party, and some of the far left groups. It's basically you got 1/3 for one block, 1/3 for one block, like 30%, around 30%. So those 3 blocks are pretty much are the same size. What's been happening and what we show happening is that the far right bloc actually managed to squeeze the bourgeois bloc, the Macron side, because when you see the results of the election, you see that it's a lot of people who voted Macron actually switched to the far right because of all he's been saying, because he's been normalizing the far right and stuff like that. So the gain the far right had came from the right, and what we've been also saying that behind those 3 blocks, there's a 4th one, which is comprised of the people who do not get into politics, who do not vote, and that those are the people we should try to get with us, because then we'll be the biggest one. So that's been our electoral strategy, and saying that so we have to build our movements and to build our program in a way that will appeal to those people, because our language is clear. There's no in between. We have to be bold and vocal about the issue we stand for, calling for to stop the the rising prices, whether it's with foods, with electricity, and we are able to do that. We have to have those demands that will actually change the daily lives of people, of millions of people, and among those millions of people are the people who don't go to vote and are disgusted by politics and by all the betrayals from the left. So you have to have those basic demands met. You have also to oppose what is one of the main appeal from the far right, which is racism, which is structural racism, and we can't avoid these things. And we've been saying that you have to, because racism works both ways, in a way that for the ruling class and for the people that are appeal to that, it's a unifying ideology that gives them, sense of identity and whatever, and it's used to divide our sides. But so anti-racism, to have clear anti-racist agenda, help us unify our people. It's not divisive if we're clear about it, and it gives people strength and dignity and to acknowledge the way they've been targeted, and the way this is using as a way not just to deflect but really to divide us. So we have to confront this. So we've been very clear about those two things: have clear social, democratic, and environmental measures to face the crisis, and also be clear about what is the main dividing factors inside our people and inside the working class, which is the racism used by the far right and Macron in order to divide us and to unify their side around this identity, ethnicist, racist, identity. So I think that's our strength as a movement, La France Insoumise. And our main focus right now is to go and campaign, actually, because we need to get people to vote. That's what we've been saying. We should focus on campaigning and beating the far right, and that's what people actually demand for us. They've been demanding for us to unite because a lot of people are afraid for their lives, are afraid for their kids, because they feel like with what they've been experiencing over the past years, they've been targeting, they've been a lot of anti-social measures and stuff like that, but they know that it will be worse if the far right manage to win. So it's not in theory, it's very they feel it in their in their very flesh, and they know that for Black and brown people, people of color, for LGBT people, and for poor people, they really feel like it's a threat to their lives, and so there's this sense of urgency to unite and fight back against the far right, and that's what we've been focusing on.
That's great, Danièle. Just before we go, just before we finish, could you just explain very, very quickly the kind of what happens in the next couple of weeks, what happens, how the election works for people over here?
So it's a very tricky system, actually, because there's 2 rounds for the elections. And so we think that we manage, our alliance agreed on to support one candidacy for our union in every constituencies around the country, which is good, which means that we think the Macron candidate will not make it to the first round. I mean, in most cases, we could a lot of us could win in the first round, because there's only one candidate, which means we'll have the support of everybody on the left and more. But on the second round, which is on July the 7th, the first round is on June 30th. Yeah, I think it is, and then it's Joel. It will be in most case, it will be the far right versus the New Popular Front. And so that's what there's a lot of talks in the media saying that, oh, we won't choose. And, you know, the media, some media people are saying we won't choose between the far right and the New Popular Front. And this idea that, you know, that dates back to the 30s, what happened in 30s, that's a lot of people that we'd rather had Hitler than the Popular Front. It's a saying that's very known here in France. And it's basically what some of the people have been saying. And so that's what is so important, that we have the biggest turnout at the first round, so that there's a lot of us that could be elected on the first round, because then for the people that, you know, managed to get to the second round on the July 7th, there's the problem is that there may be 3 candidates on the second round, and if it's someone from the right wing, they will, you know, they could defeat our candidates and stuff like that. So it's a bit tricky because of that, because it means that we can lose a lot of second round at the second round of the elections. So our main focus is the first round, and to get a lot of people elected on the first round. If there is enough turnout, that's what the turnout is so important. If there is a high turnout, a lot of us can be elected on the first round. So and there's a lot of people who are saying that I've never voted before. I was, you know, disenchanted a little bit, and for many reasons, but now I will go. And we think that this could amount to a lot of people nationally, that could help us and boost the turnout. And if the turnout is out, it may mean that we manage also to get more energy and more push in the second round for those not elected on the first round. I don't know if it's clear enough, but.
Thank you very much, Danièle. That's absolutely brilliant. It's great to have you. It's great to speak to you, and all power to you and to the movement.
Thank you. And I know you're also campaigning, and you have an election just in between hours, because we got the first round, and then, you know, so good luck for all of you and on the left, and we'll talk about it. I think there's a need for discussing those issues internationally, because the push from the right and the far right is everywhere. So we have to unite.